Chike stood at the dusty bus stop in Umuga, the village where he grew up but hadn't visited in years. The hot sun beat down on him, and he wiped the sweat from his forehead as he scanned the familiar landscape. The orange dirt road leading to Mama Ada's house seemed endless. He didn't expect to be back here, but the promise of inheritance had pulled him from his comfortable life in Abuja. Chike was a man of ambition. In his sharp suit, polished shoes, and well-groomed beard, he looked like he didn't belong here anymore. His tall frame stood out, and his piercing eyes were fixed on the goal, his grandmother's wealth. The walk to Mama Ada's compound was filled with memories of his childhood. As a boy, he would run barefoot on this very road, racing with his cousins. But things were different now. He was no longer the village boy, he was Chike from Abuja, successful and refined. His thoughts wandered to the stories he'd heard of Mama Ada's hidden fortune. They said she kept it somewhere in the house, money, land deeds, perhaps even jewelry passed down through generations. Chike was convinced it would all be his soon. When he arrived at the entrance of his grandmother's compound, he paused. The gates were old and rusted, the house weathered with time, but still, there was something imposing about it. Mama Ada was a respected elder, known for her wisdom and wealth. She lived alone now, with only a housemaid to assist her. "Mama, it's me, Chike," he called out as he stepped inside. Mama Ada sat in a wooden chair on the veranda, wrapped in a brightly colored wrapper, her silver hair tied back with a scarf. Her face was wrinkled with age, but her eyes were sharp, too sharp for Chike's liking. She smiled warmly at him, but there was something unsettling in that smile, like she could see through him. "Ah, Chike, my son, you've come back to take care of your old grandmother, eh?" she asked, her voice raspy but full of life. Chike bent down to greet her, flashing the charming smile he had perfected over the years. "Of course, Mama. I couldn't stay away when I heard you weren't feeling well." Mama Ada chuckled softly. "You always had a sweet tongue, just like your father." Chike's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Let me help you, Mama. I'll take care of everything." Over the next few days, Chike played the perfect grandson. He fetched water, helped Mama Ada with her medications, and made sure the house was tidy. He was always smiling, always attentive, making sure Mama Ada saw how much he cared. But beneath that facade his mind was constantly racing. Where was the fortune? Was it hidden in the house, or perhaps buried somewhere in the garden? One evening, as they sat together, Mama Ada looked at Chike with a strange glint in her eyes. "Chike, do you think I'm a fool?" she asked suddenly. Chike was startled. "Mama, why would you say that? I've come to take care of you." She nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the lines of her chair. "I know why you're here, my son. You think I don't see it. You want the wealth you believe I have hidden." Chike's heart raced. Had he been too obvious? He quickly tried to cover up, laughing nervously. "Mama, I only want to help you." But Mama Ada wasn't fooled. "Let's see, Chike. Let's see how much you're really willing to do for your old grandmother." That night, as Chike lay in bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Mama Ada knew more than she let on. And now, she had hinted at some kind of test. What could she mean by that? Was she going to test his devotion? Or was there something deeper at play? As he stared at the ceiling, his mind raced with possibilities. Mama Ada wasn't just a frail old woman, she was cunning, and Chike realized he might be playing a game far more dangerous than he had imagined. The next morning, Chike woke up to the sound of the old rooster crowing in the distance. He sat up, the events of the previous night replaying in his mind. His thoughts were still tangled in the puzzle of Mama Ada's words. "Let's see how much you're really willing to do." He rose from the bed and dressed quickly, deciding to confront Mama Ada and figure out what she meant. Today was the day he would either get closer to the fortune or find himself further away. He stepped into the courtyard, where the fresh morning air was crisp with dew. Mama Ada was already sitting on the veranda, as if she had been waiting for him. She looked different today, calmer, more composed, as though she had made up her mind about something. Chike swallowed his nerves and approached her. "Good morning, Mama," Chike greeted her with his usual charm, trying to ease the tension. "Good morning, my son," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "You've been a good boy these past few days, Chike. But I wonder, are you ready to prove your loyalty to me?" Chike blinked, confused. "Of course, Mama. I've been doing everything I can to help you." Mama Ada smiled knowingly. "There is more to caring for an old woman than fetching water and giving medicine. You see, I don't need a servant. I need someone who understands the value of our family and what it truly means to inherit what I leave behind." Chike's heart skipped a beat. Inherit. That was what he had been waiting to hear. But something about the way Mama Ada said it made him uneasy. "Come with me," she said, rising slowly from her chair. Chike followed her to the back of the house, where an old shed stood, its roof sagging and the wooden door slightly ajar. Mama Ada pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with dusty relics, old family heirlooms, farming tools, and what appeared to be a small chest in the corner. "This is where our family history is kept," Mama Ada said, her voice carrying a weight of generations past. "Everything you see here has a story, a meaning. But there is one thing here that is more valuable than the rest." Chike's eyes darted to the chest. Was that where the fortune was hidden? He could feel his excitement rising, but he kept his expression neutral. "I want you to find it," Mama Ada continued, "but not with your hands, with your heart." Chike frowned, confused. "Mama, I don't understand. What am I supposed to be looking for?" Mama Ada turned to him, her sharp eyes locking onto his. "I'll give you a test, Chike. There are 3 things in this shed that represent what it takes to lead this family. If you can find them, you will inherit everything. But if you choose wrong..." She didn't finish the sentence, letting the silence speak for itself. Chike's mind raced. A test? He thought this would be simple, just charm his way to the fortune. But now, it seemed Mama Ada had something much deeper in mind. He glanced around the shed, trying to make sense of her cryptic words. "Mama, can't you tell me more? How am I supposed to know what to choose?" Mama Ada shook her head. "You've always been clever, Chike. Use that cleverness now. But remember, this isn't about wealth, it's about legacy. If you choose with greed, you will fail." Her words echoed in Chike's mind as he scanned the items before him. There was an old wooden staff hanging on the wall, a clay pot sitting on a low shelf, and a carved figurine of a lion on the floor near the chest. Each object seemed ordinary, but Chike knew better than to underestimate Mama Ada's wisdom. He reached for the staff first, feeling its weight in his hands. It was old and worn, but there was a sense of strength in it. "Is this one of the things, Mama?" he asked, holding it up. Mama Ada didn't answer. She only watched him, her eyes giving nothing away. Chike hesitated. He wasn't sure if this was a trick or if he was on the right path. He glanced at the clay pot, its surface smooth and untouched by time. And then at the lion figurine, small but intricately carved. He had to make a choice, but something in his gut told him this was no ordinary test. If he failed, he might lose more than just the inheritance. Mama Ada had always been a woman of deep wisdom, and her challenge wasn't just about finding riches, it was about proving himself worthy. Chike stood still, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He was running out of time. Chike's hands tightened around the wooden staff as if it could anchor his thoughts. The weight of Mama Ada's silent gaze bore into him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a test of loyalty. There was something spiritual here, something connected to the very essence of their family. He looked at the clay pot and the lion figurine again, both seemingly ordinary, but somehow, they felt alive with meaning. Chike, Mama Ada finally spoke, her voice as soft as a whisper. You have to make your choice. Chike swallowed hard. He thought about all the things his grandmother had told him over the years about their family, their land, and the stories of their ancestors. Each item must represent one of those values, but which one was most important? He glanced back at Mama Ada, but her expression remained unreadable. It was clear, this decision was his alone to make. His mind raced as memories of childhood came flooding back. The long afternoons sitting at Mama Ada's feet, listening to stories about courage, leadership, and survival. The lion. In their family, it represented strength. Leadership passed down through generations. But was strength all it took to inherit their legacy? He set the staff down and knelt beside the figurine, running his fingers along the intricate carvings. The lion, small but fierce, looked up at him as if waiting for his decision. Mama, Chike said, holding up the figurine. The lion represents leadership and power. Is this what I must choose? Mama Ada remained silent, her eyes fixed on him but giving away nothing. Chike hesitated. The lion was tempting, after all, every leader needed strength. But Mama Ada had spoken of something deeper than power. She wanted someone who understood the value of their family, not just its power. He glanced at the clay pot again, simple and unassuming, much like the village itself. The stories Mama Ada told him about their ancestors came back, this time the ones about nurturing the land, the patience it took to grow food, and the importance of community. The clay pot represented those values. It wasn't flashy or powerful, but it was essential. Without it, there would be no sustenance, no future. Slowly, Chike set the lion figurine back on the floor and stood up. He walked over to the clay pot, lifting it carefully. It was heavier than it looked, but there was a comforting warmth to it. This is what holds everything together, Chike murmured to himself. Without it, we wouldn't survive. Mama Ada's lips twitched into a subtle smile, just for a moment, and Chike's heart leaped. Was this the right choice? It felt right, like everything their family stood for was contained in this pot. But before he could celebrate, Mama Ada's face hardened again. You've chosen well, Chike, she said, her voice measured. But this is only the beginning. Chike's stomach dropped. There was more? Mama Ada reached into the folds of her wrapper and pulled out a small, worn key. This key opens a door that leads to the real test. She pressed the key into his hand, her fingers surprisingly strong. Tonight, you will enter the family shrine and confront the truth of our bloodline. Only then will you know if you are truly ready to inherit what I've guarded all these years. Chike's pulse quickened. He had heard stories about the family shrine, but no one had been inside in decades. It was a sacred place, rumored to hold the spirits of their ancestors. He didn't know what awaited him inside, but there was no turning back now. That night, after the village had fallen into its usual quiet, Chike found himself standing in front of the shrine. It was an old structure, nestled deep in the family's land, surrounded by tall, ancient trees. The wind whispered through the branches, and the air felt thick with history. With trembling hands, he inserted the key into the lock and turned it. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a dark, cold interior. Chike stepped inside, his heart pounding. The shrine was small, filled with the scent of burning incense. Along the walls were carvings of the ancestors, their eyes watching him from every angle. In the center of the room, a single candle flickered, casting eerie shadows across the floor. And there, in the center of the shrine, was a pedestal with a large sealed clay jar. Chike's breath caught in his throat as he approached the jar. This was it, the heart of the test. But what was he supposed to do now? He could feel the presence of his ancestors in the room, their eyes watching him, waiting for his next move. Suddenly, the candle flickered violently, and a cold wind swept through the shrine. Chike stumbled back, nearly knocking over the jar. His heart raced as the air grew thick, and he could swear he heard faint whispers. What is this? Chike gasped, backing away from the pedestal. And then, in the soft glow of the candlelight, the jar began to crack open. Chike's breath came in shallow gasps as the clay jar slowly cracked open before him. The room seemed to grow darker, the whispers around him getting louder, though he couldn't understand the words. His feet felt rooted to the ground, but he knew that this was the moment Mama Ada had prepared him for. Whatever lay inside the jar would determine his future. The final piece of the jar fell away with a soft thud, revealing a single ancient scroll wrapped in faded cloth. Chike blinked. It wasn't gold or jewels like he had secretly hoped, just an old piece of parchment. Yet somehow it felt more significant than any treasure. He reached out, hands trembling, and gently lifted the scroll. As he unwrapped it, the whispers seemed to grow more coherent, like the ancestors themselves were speaking through the wind. The scroll was inscribed with symbols and writings Chike had never seen before, but something in his heart told him that this was a map, a guide to understanding the true inheritance of their family. Mama Ada had warned him about this. The greatest inheritance, she had always said, is not wealth, but wisdom. It was a lesson he hadn't fully understood until this moment. The scroll wasn't just a relic of their family's past, it was a key to something far greater than material riches. Chike's eyes scanned the symbols. Though he didn't understand their full meaning, the message was clear. It was about the land, the people, the history of their family's connection to the earth. His ancestors had been guardians, not rulers. They had nurtured the land and passed down knowledge to protect it for future generations. Suddenly, everything Mama Ada had done made sense. The tests, the cryptic lessons, even the stories she told. They were all to see if Chike could understand the deeper meaning of inheritance. It wasn't about hoarding wealth. It was about preserving their legacy. As Chike rolled the scroll back up and tucked it safely under his arm, he turned toward the shrine's entrance. A new resolve filled him. He would not be the man who sought to steal or squander the family's fortune. Instead, he would be its protector, like his ancestors before him. Stepping out into the night, Chike found Mama Ada waiting just outside the shrine. She looked frail, leaning on her walking stick, but her eyes sparkled with a wisdom and pride that Chike had never noticed before. "I see you found the heart of our legacy," she said softly. Chike nodded, humbled. "I understand now, Mama. It's not about the gold or the land. It's about keeping our family's wisdom alive." Mama Ada's smile was faint, but full of warmth. "Good, you are ready." Back at the house, Mama Ada invited Chike to sit by the fire, just as they had done so many times when he was a child. As the flames crackled, she told him the final part of the story, the part she had been waiting to share. Many in our family have sought riches, Chike. Some have even betrayed their own blood for it. But true wealth lies in understanding our place in the world, and caring for those who come after us. That's the test. Anyone can seek power or gold. But only the wise will seek knowledge and use it to uplift others. Chike sat in silence, absorbing her words. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, but it wasn't a burden. It was an honor. He would honor his ancestors by being a leader of the land, a keeper of knowledge, and a protector of their family's legacy. The next morning, Mama Ada passed peacefully in her sleep. There were no riches left behind, no bags of gold or deeds to land. What she left Chike was far more valuable. The scroll now sat in a place of honor in the family shrine, and Chike had begun learning its secrets. Each day, he worked the land, helping the villagers, and sharing the stories Mama Ada had passed on to him. The villagers, once skeptical of his return, now looked to him for guidance. Chike had found his true calling, not as a man seeking wealth, but as a protector of his family's legacy, a bridge between the past and the future. The true test of inheritance is not in the wealth we leave behind, but in the wisdom we pass on. Riches may fade, but knowledge, nurtured and shared, can build a legacy that lasts for generations.